Oh man, the post-lunch spot. No pressure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you all today about some topics that I'm incredibly passionate about. Today I'm here to talk to you about storytelling and why one of the most ancient tools of human civilization is actually one of our most powerful tools for modern innovation. And I'm actually going to start that story with a different story. In 2009, a journalist by the name of Rob Walker wanted to quantify the effect that stories and narrative have on the way that we perceive value in a study that he called Significant Objects. His hypothesis was this: narrative transforms insignificant objects into significant ones. So he went on eBay, and he bought 200 items for around $1.29 each. He then reached out to 200 authors and asked each of them to write a story to one of the objects. After a few months, he had 200 objects that most of us would consider junk and 200 stories. He then relisted those items on eBay, each now with the story attached. One of those objects is this glass hen, which he paid 50 cents for. The story attached to it, written by Alyssa Nutting, tells of an old woman who longed for her late husband, and she would stare for long hours into the glass until she thought that she could see reflections of his life. That hen sold for $34. That's a very small increase of 6,700%. Now, is this just a one-off? Did I cherry pick the most valuable object from that study? Not really. He bought those 200 items for a total of $129, and he sold them all for $8,000. And this is just one example of how stories impact the way that we perceive the world around us. Many of you have probably heard of the phrase, perception is reality. And while I'm not a huge fan of that phrase, it's true that the information that we take in every day impacts how we perceive the world and the people in it. It impacts our emotions, our behavior, our opinions, our buying habits. That gossip that you share about your coworker at lunch can affect the way your colleagues view that person. It can impact the way that they treat them. The opinion you share on social media can sway your friend's opinion on that topic, or their opinion of you. The media that I read online impacts what I believe and what I'm afraid of. And that's the thing about stories. They help us to understand things that we don't know anything about, and they help us to make sense of our own world. We've used stories as a way to teach and to communicate for millennia. Before there were pictures on screens and words on pages, there were stories passed down through generations, histories, news, fables. We tell young people stories every day. We teach them about history, about science, about each other. We tell them how to be moral, how to fit in, how to be successful. We tell them what's right, what's wrong, and what they should believe in. We tell ourselves stories too. We tell ourselves that we're right and they're wrong, that we're going to start going to the gym any day now. And a haircut with fringe is exactly what we needed after that breakup. And why is that? You know, why do the facts of our lives need narrative? Do they need it at all? The truth is that stories are all around us. In a world full of forgettable, lackluster messages, stories make things more memorable. The truth is that facts are 20 times more likely to be remembered if they're part of a story. And the reason behind this is emotional investment. We often think about emotion being separate from logic, that biology is separate from culture, that thousands of years of evolution have made us logical masters of our nature. But underneath that veneer of mastery is the fact that human emotion is also driven by evolution. Mythologist Joseph Campbell showed that the seemingly disparate and isolated cultures of the world created their own mythologies with strikingly similar characteristics. Composite creatures like mermaids and centaurs are common in Cameroon, Greece, and Malaysia. Stories of underwater civilizations are found in both Peru and in China. Brazil and Vietnam share folklore of shape-shifting animals. And how is it that humans all over the globe, separated by thousands of miles and even more years, created the same stories with different characters? Well, it turns out, like almost every aspect of the human mind, it's driven by biology. You see, when you have a positive social interaction, your brain releases a chemical called oxytocin, which is what causes us to feel empathy and want to take action. And this is important evolutionarily, as it creates trust and bonds us as social creatures. People who feel this connection are more likely to act on their emotions, responding to a social media post, donating to a charity, joining a social group, or buying a glass hen on eBay. Stories have evolved over thousands of years to engage audiences emotionally, to hook them and to keep them hooked. From the earliest oral traditions to today's massive multimedia conglomerates, they're all using the same formula. Create a story worth telling for generations. Now, why am I telling a room full of career advisors something that you probably already know? And that's because good storytelling is more important than ever, and it is vital to being successful in today's world. It's also something that is often overlooked in today's education system. Emotion is one of the most powerful forces to connect, persuade, and influence our actions and opinions. It's why it's one of the most powerful marketing and leadership tactics there is. Storytelling is used in advertising, sales, PowerPoint presentations. Lawyers tell stories to juries. Doctors tell stories to patients. Even a job interview is a story. Powerful communicators are great storytellers because they share information in such a way that we as the listener become emotionally invested. Powerful leaders use stories to facilitate negotiation, conflict resolution, and building consensus between seemingly disparate groups. Every time you interact with another human, you are telling a story. And the way that humans tell stories is changing more rapidly than ever before. Now, typically, when we think about storytelling, you probably think about books, or maybe you think about movies. You might think about more modern takes on these forms, like video games or podcasts. Even social media is a form of storytelling. We might just be giving a snippet of information. Maybe it's an update on Facebook, a momentary rumination on Twitter, or a series of snapshots of my idyllic vacation on Instagram. Every update we tell on social media, however short, is crafted to tell a story. Look at my idyllic vacation. See how I am the perfect mother. See how I am witty, I am clever, I am creative, I am relevant. No one in this room today understands the impact that that story has more than young people do. Now, I didn't get Facebook until I was nearly 20, but social media and online content has been a part of the very fabric of the lives of young people since the day that they were born. Young people today are the first generation of truly digital natives, and their experience will change the way that we communicate forever. Their attention spans are shorter, they multitask rapidly, immediate response times are key, and they're used to building relationships online through chat, text, and Zoom. Young people are used to telling their stories online every day because it's a part of their generational DNA. And we as teachers, advisors, employers, and governors have to be ready for that. So what does that mean? Well, we already know when it comes to the kinds of jobs that Gen Z is interested in, the tech industry reigns supreme. That comes as no surprise, we got that. But are we ready for those short attention spans to be serviced by shorter lectures and shorter meetings? Are we ready for what rapid multitasking actually looks like? Because to a lot of us, it could look like grade A efficiency, and to others, it just looks like undiagnosed ADHD. Are we ready for these visual learners to give us information in a format that we cannot convert into a PDF? Now, I know that's a bit rich, considering that you're all looking at a PowerPoint presentation right now. But imagine how much more engaging this talk would be if it were a video, or we were all in virtual reality, or it were an interactive video game where you played a part in how this talk ended. And I'm not personally capable of any of that, but young people will be. The future is digital, and digital literacy and proficiency is the key to the future of our economy. With things like the metaverse, AI, blockchain, and virtual reality, the careers of the future will require young people to be proficient in digital storytelling if they are to be successful, no matter what career they take. Blockchain already showed that it wasn't content to remain in the confines of the finance industry when it expanded to digital media in the form of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. 3D printing used to be relegated to rooms where you would print tiny figurines, and now you can 3D print a house or a prosthetic leg. AI has become so advanced that chatbots are now indistinguishable from humans in online chats. We've taught machines how to mimic human social engagement. We've taught machines how to tell stories and how to write music. And this is the world that young people will inhabit. Not only will they need the digital skills necessary to participate, they will also need to be masterful storytellers so that their perspectives and their ideas aren't lost in the noise of everyday life. A recent study showed that people today consume an average of 34 gigabytes of digital information every single day. Think about that. 50 years ago, it was a fraction of that. Computers weren't introduced into the workplace until the 80s. Imagine what it'll look like 50 years from now. Whether they're in meetings, on build sites, talking to buyers of agricultural products, or trolling me on Twitter for being a millennial, these young people will have a story to tell. Now, my background is in entertainment media, which includes film, television, and video games. So I understand firsthand the power of good storytelling. And as we learned from the significant object study, that power is quantifiable. A PwC report from June reported that the global entertainment and media industry will be worth $2.4 trillion this year. For context, that's equivalent to the annual GDP of France. Now, New Zealand's share of that pie is just $4 billion. That's 0.001%. Now, is that share so small because New Zealand is bad at storytelling? Peter Jackson and Taika would probably say no. And you might say, well, Chelsea, here you are again cherry-picking the best examples. But last year, Maui Studios, which is based right here in Otautahi, Christchurch, created the first Māori game character for a game called Apex Legends, which is a video game franchise valued at over $1 billion US. So why is it that our share is so small? Is it because we're geographically isolated? Because we're so far from the audiences that we seek to reach? I mean, we can test that theory out right now. For everyone in this room today, if you have access to a Netflix account, you know, whether it's your account or your account, please raise your hand for me if you have access to a Netflix account. So it's obviously not because we're geographically isolated. Clearly, media has no trouble getting to us. Much like communication, the internet is a two-way street. If content outside Aotearoa can make its way to us, then there is nothing to stop us from taking our content to them. And in order to do that, we must invest in building in capability and skills. And the University of Canterbury is doing just that. The Digital Screen Campus at the University of Canterbury is working hard to ensure that New Zealand has the skills and the technology to take a greater share of its content to the world. Situated on the Dovedale campus, formerly home of the College of Education, our vision for the Digital Screen Campus is to create a first for Aotearoa, a unique virtual and physical hub for combining industry-shaping education and research with cutting-edge commercial production and operations, all the while supporting the growth and development of the creative economy here in Christchurch. The campus will be an ecosystem dedicated to nurturing the future leaders of the digital screen industries. Our first academic offering for the program is the Bachelor of Digital Screen. It'll include majors such as animation, screenwriting, screen sound, cinematic arts, game development, and game arts. It'll also be home to New Zealand's first ever minor and Indigenous narrative, which will give students an understanding of the approaches to Māori and Pacifica storytelling in digital forms. And while the convergence of these creative industries is pivotal to the program itself, it's storytelling that sits at its heart. The fundamental principle of the minor is to foster and cultivate the use of Māori and Pacifica storytelling across different domains and industries in New Zealand. And in addition to offering a world-class education, students will also have access to commercial-grade facilities. So they'll be learning on the systems and the tools that they'll use in the real world. And this collision of education, industry, and practical experience is woven into the very ethos of the campus, because it has to be. As educators, leaders, and advisors, we have to change the way that we teach and the way that we share information, but most importantly, the way that we listen. We have to change our expectations for the next generation and the way that we engage with them. And the best way that we can support, advise, and encourage them is by listening to the stories that they have to tell. Because the reality is that young people are trepidatious about the working world. They're concerned about toxic workplace cultures, and they struggle with both mental and physical health issues in far greater numbers than my generation did. And they remind us of that every day. All we have to do is listen. They're telling us what they want and what they need, what they're good at and what they value. They're neurodiverse and gender fluid. They prefer voice memos over phone calls. And to them, the very idea of email is as antiquated as the letter is to us. Their ways of working and communicating are vastly different to our own. And if we fail to listen, if we fail to meet them where they are, then we will miss out on an incredible opportunity to be leaders in this future digital world. We must be less dismissive of their goals, less critical of their worldview, more respectful of their agency, as they are ultimately the arbiters of their own future. If we seek to guide them, it must come from a place of understanding and empathy. Ask more questions. Seek to understand with curiosity, not with judgment. And truly listen to the story that you hear. There are roles in these fields you've probably never even heard of. And these are highly skilled jobs with paying higher than the national average. We have to encourage these careers of the future, many of which we won't fully understand, because these are our future innovators. We must remember that they are future employers, business owners, builders, farmers, ministers, executives. They'll decide the future of engineering, finance, entertainment, and space exploration. They're the future of sustainability and of equality and justice. And as career advisors, you are all narrators in those stories. You tell them what the options are, what is possible, what is achievable, what is wise, and what is out of reach. You tell them what they are capable of. So the story that you tell is arguably the most important of them all. So make it count. Thank you.
Fantastic. Has anyone got any questions? We've got a couple of minutes, so I'm sure there must be a few questions out there. Just come forward to the microphones at the front here, or just in the middle. Is there a microphone? Actually, you might have to go to this one over here. You might have to go to this one over here. There we go.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question for those that didn't hear is essentially, how are we going to support people that are neurodiverse, that are coming from underrepresented groups? And that's a great question. You know, I think that this is actually one thing that the University of Canterbury does incredibly well. They have programs that in pastoral care that go through the entirety of the student's education. But even before that, they have an incredible group of career advisors and recruiters that can help students find the programs that are right for them. And the great thing about this program is that it's a 4-year degree, but the first year is just all dedicated to storytelling. And they'll actually get to experience a little piece of all of the different majors in the degree. Then they'll spend the next 2 years going out and working on their individual specializations, and then they'll come back together in the final year to work on a capstone project. So I think the degree does a great job of helping students who might not know what it is that they want to do, and especially for students who are neurodiverse or have other non-contemporary ways of learning. It helps for them to be exposed to those things over a longer period of time. You know, we all know how stressful it is if you have to know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life on day one. And I think that that's something that this degree does really well.
And what about the other areas, though, actually supporting them to move to Christchurch? Living arrangements, you know, or... Yeah,
that's a great question.
That's 50% of the equation.
Yes, absolutely. So I personally don't know that. However, I am here with 2 people from UC who can answer that question in much more detail. So we'd be happy to chat with you after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We might have another question.
Kia ora, Chelsea. Thank you for your presentation about storytelling. So my pātai is, I recognise the kōwhaiwhai that was on the presentation, and Sasha had the same one. And I just wanted to know, what was the kōrero, what was the pūrākau, what was the story behind that kōwhaiwhai?
Oh, you guys are so good with these questions. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that one either. However, again, our team here from UC can give a lot more background on how that was created. We have actually a whole team at UC that's specifically dedicated at the Digital Screen Campus to helping with that. And they'll have far more details than I will.
Cool, thank you.
What other questions could I not answer?
You were telling me before about the campus and the money that's being spent on it. Just give us a quick run-in on that, because I'm sure that'll be fascinating for them.
Yeah, of course. So I don't know how many people have been out to the Dovedale campus, but it's actually a 14-hectare site just due west of the Ilam campus. It currently has about 30 buildings on it that have really been underutilized for the last 10 years. And the university's committed $100 million to building the Digital Screen Campus, which is essentially going to be a media park. So it'll have commercial film production facilities, commercial game production facilities, and co-working space, so that these companies can actually live and work on the campus in the same spaces where the students are learning. And it'll be a much more holistic and integrated learning model. So it's far more than just internships. It's an opportunity to see a lot of these commercial productions in real time.